Hello everyone and welcome to our paper presentation for Lens Conference 2019. The aim of our research on climate change was to understand the various facets and the underlying causes of climate change by looking at different systems that were involved as illustrated in the diagram, and to find innovative ways to approach the problems caused by existing consumerism. Now, how did we do it is the question. We did this by trying to trace waste and its ecosystem and to devise a framework to finally create an ecosystem of solutions which would address the problem systematically. Now, you might ask us, why waste? According to several case studies that we had gone through secondary and both primary data, waste came up as the so-called end of human consumption, and human consumption being the underlying root cause of all the problems of industrial and consumerism mindset that we have right now. Now, the case studies aforementioned can be seen in this diagram, and with secondary data, we came across several case studies all over India, most notably finding patterns in these problems and their interconnectivity. Now, we look at RA colony and metro, which is a deforestation, land pollution problem, and several others like Delhi water crisis and Jhelum land encroachment, which is water pollution related, and all of these case studies concentrated on the northern part of India. Looking at the southern part, we have several water pollution, land pollution, air pollution crises, namely idle immersion during religious festivals, sand mining activities, which we also had a primary case study on in Jodha, Kaveri river water crisis, which is another water pollution. Now, looking at all of these problems, we were directed towards our primary case studies, and as mentioned before, Pirana dump yard, which was the resultant of human consumption, and then we also had related sectors like Ahmedabad Enviro C&D, which was the recycling center for concrete materials provided to them by the government, creative compost, and others which were non-human waste related, like Alang shipbreaking yard, and then which was also resultant of human consumption, Indroda sand mining. As you can see, all these small ant-like trucks encroaching and mining of sand from the dried river beds. Now, we went to Pirana, as mentioned before, which was the dumping yard of the entire city of Ahmedabad. It is almost 22 stories high, and it actually feeds almost 200 migrant workers, mainly from Bangladesh, and it is also growing by the rate of 3,600 tons per day. Now, we come to Alang shipbreaking yard, which was also our primary case study, and these majestic vessels which carry our consumption requirements, the demands that we pose, and then is also resultant victim of land and water pollution, but is also on the positive side supporting the economy by the recycling produced. We also have e-waste, which was the unorganized e-waste recycling, and the laborers which were engaging in this e-waste had very little to no idea about the threats that were posed to them because of not using protective gear. Like, for example, this little girl who was dealing with e-waste but has no gloves on, no protective gear, things flying all around. And finally, coming to Indroda, the illegal sand mining activity carried out by the laborers around in this region, which were previously farmers, but due to the depletion of river water, they have encroached upon the riverbed and now survive on sand mining activity as an occupation. Then again, all of these case studies led us to our synthesis of understanding end-to-end system of Ahmedabad Enviro C&D, for example, is displayed. Creative compost, who were selling almost 50 rupees per bag. The patterns of consumption in a common household was finally the resultant of our synthesis. And if we look at it, an Indian household and the demands they make, the tours or vacations they go to, the malls they go to buy their products, the schools that they are sending their children to, and the waste that finally comes out of this Indian household. They all relate to human consumption, rampant exponential growth of consumption, which then again led us to believe that there is a need for change of behavior.
Metaphors is a very strong way to communicate complexity, and meta design also advocates a lot of use of it. And we tried our own version here to see climate change as a process of making chai. So it shows how our current model of consumption is wasteful. It starts with the excessive plucking from the tree of resources, and then other ingredients are mixed with the cream of luxury, the milk. Then, while we burn our ever depleting fossil fuel reserves for our addiction and convenience, tea, we emit greenhouse gases. And you must also see that the stock of those fossil fuels are ever depleting. And this is then served through the prongs of marketing for us to consume. But before that, you can see there is a pile which filters out, and this pile is the manufacturing. And below lies the cup and saucer. So the saucer depicts the 80% of population which only gets access to a very small part, because 80% of the resources are being consumed by the 20% who sit in the cup. So all of this leaves the poster boy of climate change stranded up in the Arctic. And our study revealed it's not just the polar bear who is at the stake, but our own livelihoods and lives. So, speaking of our lives, we had explored many angles of this problem, but the social angle was the strongest and the least addressed. Existing efforts are already in place across most verticals, but not so much is done to question the behavior of the consumer and how to influence him out of consumerism, the way he was influenced into this vicious cycle. So we felt strongly that the consumer had a major role in this transition to a sustainable world. However, to understand how people are reacting, how they are responding to this wicked problem, this screening was held. The screening of Home, a movie which talks about climate change across the world, and it was very sensitizing. And after that screening, we garnered some reactions to understand, do they relate to the problem? Do they want to act? And the answer was affirmative. This state of mind of people was analyzed on a broader level with more respondents through a survey. People out of consumerism, it indeed is not a cakewalk, and the science of behavior change was our support here. We looked at the Combi model, the fog behavior model, and applied it to different types of people who would be present as our subjects, as consumers. And these people vary from those who are not aware to those who are very proactive towards countering climate change. What these transitions at each stage could be, how do you make one-time activity a habit? What should the motivations be in the current capacity of the user? All these answers were given by our switchboard. What you see here is the switchboard, and we identified barriers at each stage and what transitions were required. Then these transitions were designed so that they are participative, they are immersive, they are governed by peer group pressure, they have some personal relevance too. And all of this conscious and unconscious altering then leads you to actually bring about a change in the behavior. So, from a climate change denier to a person who is unaware to a person who is aware but is not able to do something, you travel through the switchboard and become a better consumer in the process. This switchboard needed a platform to act, and this platform was proposed as a social movement called Climate Switch. What you see here is the website of the climate. Hence came hashtag Climate Switch Pledge. It's very similar to ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, wherein you use social platforms to deliver the propaganda and bring a change. And social media is lucratively positioned to reach out so many people, and more so the people who are having a higher carbon footprint. But how do you do this? Basically, you identify your footprint, your awareness or contribution, and are then enabled and empowered through a support network to bring us positive change, perhaps through a switchboard. So, this will happen through kiosks, online festivals, mobile platforms, and one such platform we will discuss is the Climate Switch bus. Is like a change maker on wheels. It goes to different cities, it has a plethora of events around it, and it's about attracting people on the mainstream entertainment and then infuse them with values, activities, and behaviors for climate switch. It's about informing, making them aware, and educating people on climate change, but on through different narratives, not just a single narrative that the polar bear is not happy. Along with the above, we also explored some product design interventions under adaptive conditions for the waste economy. However, the need of educating the masses is the most vital, and hence a pledge of sorts for school kids, which is more holistic in nature, which talks about the earth, which talks about the planet, was also designed. To make education and awareness fun and interactive, a board game was developed. We call it Switch for the Future, in which players role play to realize the ups and downs through cause and effect. It portrays the systemic connections and dependence of the major stakeholders government, industry, consumers, and education, and how it affects the bigger picture. What you see right now is a current model of a product creation process. It starts from mining right up to the disposal of the product, and it shows how globalization is influencing all these stages through the consumerism. Consumerism is about all about making things cheaper, making it faster, and it doesn't bother about the after effects. And technology here plays a role of a facilitator as a support function in actually making all of this possible. This is how the current system is. And coming to this, the proposed model, here you can see that the user is taking the central role, whereas it was dormant in the back in the previous model. So the user is taking the central role in influencing a positive, sustainable change across the industry through technology. And this can only be achieved by education, awareness, and active change mechanism on personal, social, and professional levels. In conclusion, social innovation is empowering and starts with deciphering the mind. Government, industries, or any other stakeholder have human beings at the center of it, and hence design for sustainable behavior must be mandated as a practice in bringing contextual transformation in whatever their field of influence may be. So, immersion is also a very powerful tool to sensitize the person and motivate him or her enough using influencing social trends to bring a consistent behavior change.